Okay, so in this one we're going to look at the animating the trim path, so I'll just show you what we're going to end up with. So there we go, it's a nice neat little trick that you see quite a lot in motion graphics, an animation of the trim path. Okay, so we're going to use our background again, the note paper or whichever background you'd like to import in. So first of all we're going to draw an ellipse. Oops, so I'll do that again. Right, just need to make sure that we click off the layer there, otherwise we'll create a mask. So make sure the layer isn't selected, select the ellipse tool, draw out an ellipse. If you hold down shift then we'll get to a circle. We want to center that, so if we click on the layer to select it, and then if we go to control and home, that will put it in the center. Okay, so we're going to animate the trim path here. So to do that, if you go up to, so with the shape layer selected, if you go up to the menu at the top here, you see where it says add. If we click on the drop down there, you'll see there's a series of different effects we can add here, different animations we can create. So if we click on trim paths, okay, and you will see that is now added to our layer, and we've got the properties for that here. Okay, so if we just expand the trim path there, you'll see we've got start and end settings here, and what this does is this basically trims the path. Okay, so so if I move this value at 0, that's at 0 at the moment at the start, if I just move that, you'll see that trims down from the end point. Let me just click off that actually so we can see it more clearly. So you can see that trims, it's not going to, I'll zoom in on it. If we just move that, you see it trims from the end point. So we're basically, say if I put in a value of 75, okay, that's basically trimming off 3/4 of the circle, so we're just left with 25% or a quarter here from the start. Likewise, if we set that back to 0, then we've got the end point here, which is at the moment at 100, and again if we want to reduce that value down, that trims towards the end point here. So again, if we put in say 50%, we're left with half, so it's trimmed half of it off. Okay, so that's the way that works. We've got the offset here, so if I change the offset value, you'll see that literally takes that stroke there and just offsets it, so that's offset by 10 degrees from the end. We can continue to move that around. We could go to 90 for example, and that will take it a quarter of the way round from where it was initially. Okay, so that's how those settings work. We're going to now create an animation, so if we just set both these values to 0, set the offset back to 0. Okay, so I'm going to insert a keyframe at the start here, and then I'm going to move that on to 1 second. I'm going to turn the start up to 100% so we can see all of the circle, all of the stroke. Okay, so I'm just going to adjust the work area in a bit here, so we'll bring this right in to about 2 seconds. And then we can just test that, play that through. So you see we've got a nice simple animation, just a circle being drawn, circle appearing. Okay, now I'm going to turn to the end property here. We're going to put in a keyframe. So if we move the playhead to 20, say 20 frames, 1 second and 20 frames, create a keyframe there. Okay, move that on a bit. So if we say go to, where are we? About 10 frames, 2 seconds and 10 frames. I'll just extend the work area and turn the value up to 100%. You'll see that the circle now is going from fully visible to disappearing again. So if we play that through, we've got the circle being drawn and then the circle being erased. Okay, I'm just going to adjust that in because we've got a kind of uneven spacing between the keyframes. So I'll bring that into 20. And then I'll bring this into 10 and then that into 2 seconds. Then we have an even space between each keyframe. Okay, that'll be fine. Now we're going to turn our attention to the offset. So if I turn the playhead back to 0, insert a keyframe at 0. Okay, so we put in on the offset layer, we put in the keyframe at 0. If we now move to 20 frames, and if we change that offset value to 180 degrees, you'll see that what happens is, as it begins to draw the circle, you can see the offset up here is starting to appear as well. So it's drawing the circle, but it's kind of chasing, I don't know, chasing its tail kind of thing. So it's drawing in a clockwise direction, but the offset is also moving behind it in a clockwise direction. But eventually, when we get round to this point here, which is just 180 degrees, it catches up with itself and we get a complete circle. Okay, so it creates this nice kind of moving line effect. So we're now going to move on to the second circle here, and again we'll put in an offset at this point. It corresponds with the end animation, and we'll set that to 0 again, so it's a repeat of what we've just done. And then if we move to here and insert another keyframe and change to 180 again, you'll see that again we will get this offset effect. And again, when it gets just to the bottom to 180 here, it will, rather than appearing, it will disappear. Okay, so it goes from in reverse from full circle to no circle. Okay, so a reverse of what we've just done here. Okay, and again, if we want to apply easing to this, we can select all these keyframes, we can press F9 like we've done previously, we can open the graph editor and we can select the individual properties and we can have a play with those. So again, the nice thing here is you can visually alter the graph and quickly test it to see what effect the alteration of the graph has. Okay, so you can do some fine tweaking, fine adjustments there, and again just some experimentation. Okay, I just want to show you something, again this idea of using what you've already created. Say we wanted to create concentric circles here, so we could use this animation and basically copy it and paste it and adjust it. So if we take this, I'm just going to resize this actually because it's a little bit big at the minute. So if I go into transform and scale here, I'm just going to scale our circle down a bit. Okay, and then what we can do is we can duplicate this layer. So if we Control D, okay, I'm going to just duplicate a few times there. So we've got 6 layers. And then if we go into the second layer here, so actually let me just set our initial, so if I go into our first layer, okay, sorry, let me do that again. So our first layer here is shape layer 1. Go into transform, select scale. I'm just going to take that down just so it's uniform. I'm going to take that to 25. And then I'm going to go to layer 2 and basically I'm going to repeat this process. So layer 2, transform, scale. This time I'm going to, so it's incrementally going to get bigger by 25%. So I'm going to take this to 50. Okay. And then we should see we've got more than one circle appearing now. And just work through it in that way. Okay, so just takes a little bit of patience this. So if I go to shape layer 3, into transform, scale, so this is going to be 75. Okay, and you can see we're kind of building up this series of concentric circles now. Okay, this will be 100, and so on. Next one, 125. And then finally 150. Okay, it's gone off the page a bit, but never mind. So there you go, you can see we have our concentric circles. So we've created the animation once and then reused it. So there you go, just getting you thinking about how you can duplicate and use some of the work you've already done if that's appropriate for your project. Okay, and then finally we could sequence these again. So if we shift click first layer, shift click final layer, right click and keyframe assistant, sequence layers. If we put in 4 to 8 again, now if you remember that gives us a 2 frame delay between each layer appearing. So if we click OK, and that will just put that 2 frame delay in for us, and we can play that through, and there you go. I'm a bit zoomed in actually, that's why it's gone off the page, isn't it? So we're not getting the best view of that. There we go, I've zoomed out now. Let's just deselect. There we go. There we have our animation. You could, if you want to, add in the old the motion blur. Again, you can experiment with that. Can give you some nice, more dynamic. Might take a minute to render, like it is doing on my machine here. If you've got a slightly older graphics card, which I have. Okay, it's just rendering to the green line, it's just telling me it's rendering through. Right, there we go. And then we've got the motion blur kind of smoothing things off as well. Okay. So there you go, we've learned how to animate the trim path and duplicate it and sequence our layers again.